Welcome to where the screen door slams and the coffee mug hits the table. You're listening to The Family Balancing Act with me, Maureen Huntley, mom, grandmother, and board-certified holistic and functional medicine health coach. Each episode will explore the realities of your day-to-day family life in this modern era of nonstop texts, memes, and technology. After all, how do we keep ourselves sane and our family healthy? I'll have amazing guests and thought-provoking discussions, and we'll take a holistic look at family health, emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual. Whether it's a micro perspective of family involving healthy snacks, teenagers with an attitude, stressed out husbands, partners, adult children, potty training, elder care, grandchildren, college prep, or a macro perspective of world events, including flu, earthquakes, the brainwashing media, finances, and oh, so much more. We'll find a way together. So take a deep breath, exhale, and know that you're not alone. Bring on the Family Balancing Act. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Family Balancing Act. If you've been here with us before, welcome back. And if this is your first visit, hopefully it won't be your last. So come right in, pull up a chair, grab a coffee, a green juice, or a tea, because we have a lot to chat about today with my guest, Master Manifestor, mom, and oh so much more, Reverend Maureen Jeffries, here on the Family Balancing Act, where we are restoring the heart of motherhood, one conversation at a time. I'm Maureen, your host, board-certified integrative, holistic, and functional medicine health coach, mom, grandmother, wife, and CEO of my family's home operations. So, our show from last week, episode 113, 113. Medical mess. It affected me deeply. And I know it did for a lot of our listeners also. I had truly no idea that this medical device was so destructive to the health of women, men, and now I've learned children. We here at the Family Balancing Act will continue this conversation again soon, as I truly believe it's not to be shelved like it has been for over so many years now. It's something you don't talk about. Even the victims themselves don't talk about. So if you've not had time to listen to this episode, that's okay. It's available on so many platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Podbean, Google, iHeartRadio podcast, and more. You can also find it on all the links on my website at maureenhuntley.com. So honestly, kind of on that subject matter, I was a little overwhelmed by all the questions I had received about the mess subject, which is not anything I really had looked into before. I wanted so to rescue and fix and help those who had been injured, and the injuries are big. Upon reaching out to whomever I could, and I found that they were looking for a tribe, and that their tribe was small, but they didn't have them, or they were non-existent. And many were going through this atrocity, had illnesses that weren't directly connected to exactly the mesh itself, but are they? Well, both my guests from last week, Lynn and Kim, spoke of having the same strange symptoms over the years, but they never really talked about it to each other, yet they knew each other, let alone other women. So how many people are dealing with this? And where is the support? There are support groups and tribes, which we'll get into later today, are out there in the ethers, right? But you need to search them out. And I do know that there are also, many mesh support groups on Facebook, which can be a really great place to begin the process of getting help and supporting others, or just learning about it, because you never know who's had this done. and how it's affected so many. So this is just a drop in the medical device bucket, because there are many things going on that are being ignored. So please check out Lynn and Kim's group, the Medical Mesh Mess, Solutions for Women, on Facebook. They're a great think tank of knowledge. So creating a tribe for your life now, what's that look like? And when are you done with it? We all need some sort of a support group, right? A tribe, which could be just 2 or 3 people, but it's your tribe, your people who get it, who listen, who hold space as we crumble or as we celebrate. So many of us can often feel just alone, like we're the only one that could possibly be dealing with blank. Yet we soldier on alone, or our people have left the group or our tribe, or no one's listening. And it can be due to many reasons, but we feel alone. And therein comes the internet. The internet has become the connection to the connection. It's a great starting point for many, but it can also be very confusing. Oh, a word about tribe. Yes, it's a noun and it's plural. But Webster's definition is a social group comprised chiefly of numerous families, clans, or generations having a shared ancestry and language. Wikipedia says it refers to a category of human social groups. Well, yes, we're all humans, and we humans need people who get us, who hold us up, who validate us, share, hear, and can be with us. Well, even introverts do. Our tribe can be through writing, or online, or in person. It can be the support that we don't get at home. Many of us don't, or in school, or in church where you think you would, or work, or you name it. Jeff Goins is a best-selling author of The Art of Work, and Real Artists Don't Survive, until I could have used that book years ago. He asks, what is a tribe? A small but powerful group of people. It's a fan base, a Bible study, a group of influencers. A tribe is small enough to feel personal, but can be large enough to make a difference. They're not usually created out of thin air. More often than not, tribes are found. They're existing groups of people formed around a very specific interest or passions. Often they're leaderless until somebody shows up who has either the courage or the ego to run it. So examples are things like Trekkies, that's a tribe, or Southern Baptist Convention. It's another tribe. You've got vegans who are a tribe, and J.K. Rowling's readers are a tribe, and your neighborhood can be your tribe, and your family can be your tribe, or not. All major movements begin with a group, with a tribe, a group of people who care enough to do something, to create something. And if your message is going to make a difference, you're going to have to find your own tribe. For me, I belong to lots of different tribes because I have lots of different interests and things I need help and support with. For me, I'm still a card-carrying member of my mom tribe. Well, my intention is that I will always be a card-carrying member of the mom tribe, even when I'm 100 years old. But now I've also moved into the grandma tribe with some of my mom tribe. Sounds a bit like a cult or a 6th grade clique. Well, in a way, I guess it kind of is. We're all just girls having a collective experience called motherhood. Everyone within our group found their place, as we all have the bond of having had children, each with their own opinions, thoughts, worries, and societal pressures on how we raise them. We were the sounding board of discussions and deep friendships that formed that were the touchstone of our lives. Many of us probably would never have connected, but for our children. When I think of that, there's actually an overwhelming feeling of sadness, but I can turn that around pretty fast with gratitude, as I would never have grown to be who I am without the push and pull of my mom tribe. As the years went by, we were all, of course, there, caught up in the times and what we had to do, and well, some of us just didn't keep our mouths shut when another mom was telling her story. Oh, how Junior had something unthinkable and done something awful. Oh, we might do the I shift thing, but then we'd be hit with, we could be that mother going through that exact same thing or something similar next time. So generally, we tried to keep it together. Our tribe, our mom group, we called our group Coffee and Kids. And we lived for the times we'd see each other as we dragged our kids to and fro to their play date. It was actually our play date. We were like a giant mirror pinging back and forth similar concerns and experiences. And a bonus meeting, oh yeah, could be particularly good on a bad day, or if one of us was going through a really tough time, we'd make a plan to meet over a glass of wine or two. And our group's name would go from Coffee and Kids to wine, and release. Yes. Well, the years pass by, the children grow up, and people move away. And yet, even at a distance, we try to stay connected. Our tribe. We've changed, though. We've grown. There have been some health and family stuff. Some have had grandchildren like myself, and others have not. We're still there for each other, even at a distance. We can talk over texts, and we try to listen, we try to hear, and sometimes we give totally unwanted advice, like the old days. But if and when that stops, we stop listening and hearing, we know we've outgrown our tribe until we meet again. So make an effort to stay connected to your people of like mind. It'll do your health good. It'll feed your soul. We're not meant to travel this physical, spiritual journey on our own. So with that, I am so honored today to have Reverend Maureen Jeffries as my guest. She is an ordained interfaith. She's ordained interfaith, attended the seminary at Hashem's, I'm saying this wrong, Maureen, house. She also holds an MA in interfaith. I'm going to stop my little roll here because that's what I'm reading. At Interfaith University, as well as a BA in literature and communications for Pace University. She currently sits on the board at World Awake, Inc., which we're going to hear a little bit more about later, which empowers and supports ministries in the spiritual world throughout the world. Reverend Jeffries has been performing wedding ceremonies. You can see her on Instagram. Her photos are beautiful. Baby blessings and funerals throughout the tri-state area since 2007. And leading meditation workshops, which I've done. They're amazing, for nearly 2 decades. And she is also a contributing author to so many publications. So I'm so very honored and honestly thrilled, and I hope you forgive me for my blithering there, but I'm honored to have you join me.
Well, hello, I'm glad to be here. I think the first thing I want to talk about is the elephant in the room, which is that Maureens are a tribe amongst themselves. And I don't know if other people, there are many of us. I don't know if people know this, but when Maureens meet another Maureen, there is an automatic, oh, I love you.
Yes, it's true. It's like, and it's so funny because I have a sister named Maureen, but that's for another show. But Maureens there's something about us. So.
It's true. It's very interesting. As you were saying, I do a lot of weddings, and I was at a wedding recently and was introduced to an Aunt Maureen, and I said, "Oh, hello, Aunt Maureen. I love you." And I gave her a big hug, and she's like, "We've got to stick together." So finding your tribe of Maureens is good too.
It's great. Well, I'm so honored. I'm sorry. I was like tripping over my tongue there, and I'm like, oh, well, you'll fix this with
No
telling us
worries,
more.
no worries. Literally, I stand in front of groups of hundreds of people every weekend talking about weddings and couples, and literally the biggest fear in my head every time is that I'm going to mispronounce someone's name at their own wedding. So I understand.
And I just
very
did it
rarely say last names.
on an international show, but hey. uh, so tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, where you've been and how you got to where you are now with this journey of becoming an ordained minister. That was the word that was missing. I was like, where is that word? And it wasn't coming out of my head.
So, yeah, I've been a minister. I was ordained in 2006. And when my children were little, I was introduced by my best friend, Stacy Wolf James, who is a famous psychic. Feel free to look her up. So Stacy Wolf James was doing these meditation workshops in the city, in New York City. And we would go to these workshops and we'd learn how to meditate. And they were very active using chanting and some other things that I really fell in love with. And I was coming home to my friends, to my mom, and they were saying, we want to do this, but we're not going into New York City. You do it. You do it. So I started teaching. Of course, I said first, I would never do that, which is how anything that I've done in my life has happened. If I ever say to you, I will never do that, the chances are it just isn't time yet. And at some point I'll do it. So I was taking these classes and my friends were like, please, can you do these workshops? And I started doing these meditation workshops using some of the tools that I learned from Stacy and from some other things, and created this meditation for moms group. And it brought some really lovely, amazing, spiritual, like-minded women into my life. And I was so grateful for that. And even back then, I was of the mindset of the teacher really only needs to be one lesson ahead of the student. So that's really where I lived for a long time.
Yes.
And I started developing these techniques of this active meditation and so on. We would chant, we would do guided meditations. And I really learned that the power of women together using our voices is really important and can really change the dynamic and the energy in the room and in our lives. But fast forward, I was having these moms come to my house to learn how to meditate so that they could be calm. And I was doing this in the house, and my husband worked and would come home at 7:30, and the women would arrive at around 7:30. And so I was screaming at my children to go to bed so that I could teach these other moms how to relax.
We're going to relax now.
Yeah. And I just found that it was so incongruent with what I was trying to do. So I reached out to the local community school and I said, hey, I have this group of moms. Can I run my classes through you? And there was an ancient lady, and she was probably 90 years old, and she was typing up my information. And she said, well, what are your credentials? And I said, credentials? And she said, well, to teach meditation. And, this was 20 years ago. You couldn't go to school, or, Deepak Chopra didn't have his classes. It just didn't exist back then.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, I have a BA in communications, but, I've been doing this for many years, and I think I know what I'm doing. And, I had taken classes. It wasn't like I just decided to put out a shingle. But so I was talking it over with my best friend, Stacy, and she said, you should go to seminary. Stacy had just graduated from the new seminary in New York, and she said, my friend is opening this brand new seminary. It's called the Seminary Hashem's House, and you should go. And I did. And while I was in seminary, I loved it. And I thought, well, I'll learn how to do all this other stuff, the weddings and the baby blessings and the funerals, because that was part of the curriculum. But I was a brat in seminary and said, I will never use this. I will never do this. I hate love. I hate people. I think that's exactly what I said. And lo and behold, but I ended up doing it. I got ordained. I got my credentialing in line. And I thought, well, what if I'm on a wedding and like the priest dies? And they're like, is there a minister in the house? And I could be like,
saving the day.
Yes, here I am, hero, right? So that's not exactly what happened, but sort of. I had a friend who called me in a panic a couple months later. She called because her son was getting married in California. This is a friend from seminary. And she had 3 weddings booked that weekend. And she said, I need you to do these weddings for me so I can go to California. And I said, here I am. And the first wedding was at this amazing place in Hamilton, New Jersey called the Grounds for Sculpture. And it's all these like oversized, life-size sculptures. It's the most amazing place. And I was there standing doing my first wedding, and I felt like it was an Oprah moment. Aha, I'm supposed to be here. And that was 600 weddings ago. And it was like everything I had ever done in my life had led me there. And I became a part of this community of women and couples going through this great transition in their life. And speak of tribe, women, when they're getting married, are surrounding themselves with friends. The men are surrounding themselves with their best men, their maids of honor. And there's a lot of push-pull in that. And I really learned how, in transition, these couples needed some help in being held up with the conflicts with their friends, with who's stepping up, who can come to a bachelorette party, who can't, why they can't, who has money. And really that dynamic of tribe was really very front and center.
Wow, that is so insightful. And it's also the blending of tribes too,
Right.
and who stays in, who falls, who falls out, and fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I do have a theory about men and groomsmen. And again, 600, I've done, 600 weddings at this point.
You go,
And
girl.
Men
Let's
come
go
in
there.
men come in groups of 5. And here's my theory on why. Because only 5 people fit in a car, and men make their friends in high school. That's it. Women, on the other hand, collect friends. I have friends from work. I have friends from, the neighborhood. I have friends from college. And so our collection of friends is really culled in in a more unique way, I think, than, and again, huge stereotypes about men, but I think we cull our friendships in a little bit of a different way. I don't know why that is. I think we just lean on people in different areas of our life.
Well, it's naturally the male energy is the hunter, and we're the gatherers, the berries, and the pulling of the family, holding the family together, the energy that pulls things together and people together. Fascinating.
Well, there you go. And they're out hunting in the car, I guess.
Yeah, they're driving along.
I was at a wedding recently,
and we're getting our berries in our glass of wine. No, I'm just.
I was at a wedding recently, and there was a group of men, and there were 6 of them. And I said, "Oh, this blows my theory." And I explained it to them, and one of the guy goes, "Joe is in the trunk," and they literally would throw Joe in the trunk.
Oh my God, that's too funny. Oh wow, that's insane. Just how life puts these people together. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Now, when you're doing like a funeral, what is that tribe like? What is that for you as a minister?
Say that funerals are my most favorite thing. And I do a lot of weddings. I don't do as many funerals, but what I love about a funeral is because everyone from every aspect of your life comes in to say goodbye. And so much of the stuff of life is just dissipated when there's a loss. And so much of what we give to one another is just being there with our hearts open, holding people up. And a lot of things can be healed at a funeral, at that transition. I think it's also really important at a funeral to really reach out to other people who have been through a similar situation. I know when I lost my dad, surrounding myself with people who had also lost a parent was so important because, my husband hadn't lost his parents. He didn't know what that was like. But to be around people who understood that loss, I think, was really important to me. I have a really good friend who said, "Welcome to the worst club you'll ever be a part of." Because no one wants to be a part of that club, but eventually we all get there, right, as we transition through life.
Right. And there's a whole Well, we're all getting there. We're all headed in that direction. And actually, with the tribe of people who've lost family members, parents, children. I mean, I have a friend of mine who's lost a child, and it's so important to be with like-minded people, people who have been there, who totally get it. Because as much as you love your husband and you guys are a couple, it's probably he can't fully understand what you've been through. He doesn't, and thank God.
Right. Yeah. It's just an interesting thing, right? But that idea of, who we surround ourselves with and for what and why. And I think the other thing is when to know when to let go of people, right? So
Mhm.
the idea that, someone who served me when I was 22 in New York City and going out to the bars and drinking and, is maybe not the same support system that I needed when my kids were 3.
Right, right. And it's a lot of, like, I had a lot of friends who didn't get married. They got married, they didn't have children, and yet I was off having kids, and it was hard to sometimes to connect on the level that we used to connect at. And it's not that I wanted to let go of them for my life. That wouldn't be with many of these individuals, but there is a letting go. There is a gradual separation until maybe you get to a place again where you're not talking so much about diapers and shoe sizes and schools and extracurricular activities or college exams. You can now meet them again. So when you became a minister, I'm just going to bounce back to this because I know I wanted uh, to put this forth. Is I know you're Catholic. You were brought up a Catholic. I'm a Catholic. How did you reconcile your choice to do this? How do you work with that?
It's interesting because being an interfaith minister, interfaith is not a religion, right? Interfaith is uh, really showing the pieces that draw us all together, the similarities in all religions, uh, where we find that space for God or spirituality or whatever you want to call it, but where you find space for that hits home and hits the heart. So for me, it was very hard. It was very hard to uh, wrap my head around the fact that I could be a good interfaith minister and a Catholic at the same time. But it was also really important to me just to understand that, if someone came to me and they were Catholic and wanted to get married by me and it wouldn't be recognized by the Catholic Church, that we sort of talk that out as well. And then
Hmm.
what that means in the future for their children and everything else. But I think for me, I do a lot of translating in my head when I go to Catholic Mass. So I like to use the one holy universal Catholic Church. Those words I think mean different things to different people. And
Right.
so I
They
try to
all
use
do.
the very
Yeah.
broad senses of the word. I think that sometimes, and this was um, the real point for me is I have been called to do this work. I know that I heal families at weddings. I know that my place in this world at ceremony is to heal those risks with people who don't know what to do. And I know sometimes I'm just a placeholder. And if I can be the placeholder or the bridge between we don't feel spiritual, we don't believe that, and then when they have children and they decide, well, we want to bring this into our children's lives, and so now we can go to the Catholic Church and we've had a bridge or a placeholder. So it's not just a ceremony without spirituality or without religion or without that connection.
Hmm.
Um, the other thing I'll say about weddings is people hear what they want to hear.
Yes.
So I've done weddings that were Jewish Catholic, and the Jewish family has come up to me and said, I hope they don't mind it was so Jewish. And then the Catholic family comes up at the same wedding and I hope they don't mind it was so Catholic.
Wow. That's a big win. That's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, so understanding that this was a calling for me took a lot of years. I remember when I first was ordained, I wore just a black dress, and I didn't wear a robe or anything like that because it felt like a costume. But now, after so many years and really so many, being with so many families and doing so many things, now it feels like a mantle that fits like home, almost as much as the Catholic Church did at, growing up. It felt like home. And standing and being um, that that placeholder in people's lives feels like home to me.
Right. Wow. That's fantastic. I think that it's so important for the experience that you create or help hold a container for people, that they find such comfort. And they did, like the example you just used of, oh, I hope it wasn't so Jewish, I hope it wasn't so Catholic, or I hope it wasn't so whatever.
Right.
I was at 2 weddings recently where it was a kind of a mixed wedding, and where they did get married in the church separately, and then they had the wedding of their dreams, which was to have it at the actual hall or event hall or whatever it was, with the minister they wanted.
Yeah.
And everybody's happy. It's great.
Well, I think that, taking care of people's hearts is really what ministry is about, right? So it's about walking through you through life, walking next to you as you transition through hard things,
Mhm.
through whatever. Um, but holding care of people's hearts is really important to me, and I think that that's a big piece of ministry, and I think that's a big piece of what I do is just making sure that we're thoughtful about people's hearts.
To be very aware and mindful of the heart, because we hold so much there. And women, mothers, this is my mission, is to connect mothers back to how amazing they are, and look at what you created as a mother and as a woman to be able to hold this space. So you had mentioned to me that you're glad it's 2023. You had a really rough ride in 2022. And what was that like? I mean, and how do you see 2023 moving forward?
Well, it's really interesting. So we had some big things happen in 2023 in our family. We had we had some health problems, and it was really it was a rounding of the wagons, circling the wagons
Hmm.
for me. Uh, some people were amazing and stepped up and helped me, and I couldn't have gotten through the year without them. And then other people, just couldn't process and couldn't help and didn't know what to do and stepped back, which is always sort of shocking to you, right? When you think like, oh, I thought, that person
That
would
was
be there, this person would
right.
be
This
there.
is my person, one of
This
my
is my
people.
person.
And yeah.
I think I learned two things about that. The first being that everyone can't fit into every situation to help you, and that's not their job. And just like I was talking about my job as placeholder, right? So not every friend is going to be your rock, and that's okay because that's not their job. And I think the other thing that I've learned, and this has been my biggest um, lesson, I think, in this life, is to have grace for people who mess up and who are not there for me. And I'm the type of person, if I see you, I can't unsee
Yeah. Wipe that away. Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm, I don't know if that's from being an Irish Maureen or not, but
Yeah. I see
I
you.
see you now, and I
There's no
can't
hiding
pretend.
now.
Yeah,
Right.
I
Right.
can't pretend you're something else if that's who you are. So that has been really interesting for me, is this idea of where do I allow grace and compassion into people who um, I think have not, haven't been what I needed or wanted, and maybe that's unfair too, right? But here we are, 2023. I was with an amazing group of people for New Year's this year, and as the clock struck, I I just I hugged my husband and I broke out into tears because I was like, I felt like, oh, I think we got over the finish line to this
This
to this new
puppy.
thing. Yeah,
Goodbye, 2022.
yeah, it really felt that way. And so I'm excited to start the year. And my goal for this year, and I always do a vision board, and I always am very thoughtful.
Me too.
As you mentioned, I consider myself a master manifester. I'm the type of person, if I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to I don't know, have like be a salesman and like have a case, and you would walk around with a case and go into shops and be like, hey, want to buy my stuff? And then the next week someone would be like, hey, do you want a job selling stuff for me? So I have to be really careful what I wish for. It's the whole
Yeah,
monkey paw thing. So
that's funny.
this year I've decided that I'm going to be really thoughtful about not only who I surround myself with, but I'm going to be really grateful for the people who are there and the tribes that I've created. I have a wonderful group of ladies I do yoga with. I have a great group of ladies I do Pilates with. I have a spiritual group I belong to. I belong to this Awake Inc., which is
Yes,
amazing, World Awake. And I have all these people who are really heartfelt and centered and gracious and compassionate. And if I want to bring more of that energy into my life and into my friendship, then surrounding myself with those energies is probably the most important thing I can do.
starts with you. Starts with me. It starts with
Right.
each one of us really connecting with what we need and what we want. So I wanted to definitely get on the subject here of the release, or when do we know to let go? To let go of the pieces of ourselves that don't work and the other people that don't work in our lives. Uh, I know for myself, I'm often, um, I'll pull people in because I think, oh, and it doesn't even mean that they're part of a tribe I've created, but all of a sudden I've created a tribe without knowing I've been a part of a tribe. And it'll just be kind of people from my past or somebody I met just accidentally. And it's really very difficult to keep this charade up, to keep the energies up, uh, because life is getting shorter. Like as you can be hit midlife, you start to realize I got X amount of time, maybe, unless live like if we really kind of redo things here, we live as long as they did in the Bible. You can live to be 800. I don't think so. Um, you know, Time is of the essence in that we should be doing and being with people we want to be really with, that fill us up. If I'm not getting filled up, I guess that's what I talk about. If I'm not getting filled up, it's kind of a waste of time.
I think so, but I also feel like that idea of taking care of people's hearts is also important, right? And I think that's where the rub is. Where is your responsibility to yourself and feeling filled and making sure every relationship is important? And what if you're that person for someone else?
Well, then you should definitely, if I feel that that person needs a friend or needs a connection, I'm there. I'm totally there because that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we do as humans, is to have kindness and empathy and understanding and just listen in
Yeah,
here.
I think that we could do a whole other show on codependence as well.
Yes,
And
it's the
I think
codependent ones that,
we
yeah,
we think of our, we have to also remember that codependence is not only about our familiar relationships, that's also with friends, right? And so really
acquaintances
understanding
even.
what our friendships are for. So I think if you're at a point in your life where you're feeling uh that you're being pulled in too many directions and you can't be there for everyone, really I think sitting down and evaluate what are friendships for.
Mhm.
What do I need these what do I need these people for? And then what do they need me for? What purpose do I serve in their life? And I think really trying to balance all of that is where it is. So maybe you don't, someone you saw all the time, maybe you see them once a month, but making sure you're keeping that connection, I think, so that they're not completely gone is important.
Right. And therein lies the rub. It's the taking the time. to actually go there, to go beyond just having it in your head, but to actually take the time to write it out or to meditate on it
Right.
and wait for the answers. The
Did you ever hear
meditation.
did you ever hear this theory that we are like the 5 people you spend the most time with?
Yes, yes, yes. It's great. It's right.
So I think that's an interesting thing too, right? Like, so who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? And then that'll give you sort of a glimpse into who you are. And if you don't like that, if all your friends are crazy,
And right. Or maybe it's you. The other piece is maybe it's you. You got to look in the mirror and go, they're putting up with me. They're putting up with me. And I'm sure there's a piece of that in everyone, or certainly in me, I know, and blab away about all sorts of things and start backing up. No, I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
They
Yeah.
start
Maybe,
doing
yeah.
the
So I know, I think
backup dance.
that's a really interesting thing. It's like really, really think about, what your friendships are for and why you need them and how you can be a good friend to other
Mhm.
people. But I think that most of this stuff comes down to just being thoughtful, really thinking and being thoughtful about who we are in life and what we're doing and why. And
Right,
that's the stuff I do with my couples every day. I'm talking to them about what does a good marriage look like? What does a good marriage look like? Spend some time thinking about that. Who do you want to be in 20 years? You think back, I've been married for 25 years this year. You're a little bit longer than that, I think.
35, yeah, longer.
35 years, right? So, and you think about, the Maureen you were on your wedding day and your ideas about marriage and what it was going to be like. And if you
Woof,
if you could have
different.
if you could have transported yourself into the future 35 years, would you have said this is the marriage you want? I don't know, right? So that's the stuff I talk to couples about is be really thoughtful about what are you trying to create here? You want to be the
Right.
couple that's dancing in the kitchen when you're married 35 years? You got to start today. You can't wait 27 years and go, you never danced in the kitchen.
We dance in the kitchen. No, it's good. Dancing in the kitchen's good.
I think
It's
all couples want to be the couple that dances in the kitchen, but life gets in the way, so you have to make
It
time.
does. There are years that it doesn't happen. There are years that everything has a season,
Mm.
and it's a matter of whether or not you want to go with the weather. How the weather blows us in different directions and that, but
Yeah,
to really connect to ourselves, and the connection to others is definitely very important. It's when we're clanging into each other and knowing when to take a step back. I find that there are times, I used an example a few weeks ago for one of the shows, is that I was away with all the playgroup friends, and how this time I didn't do this, but in years past there'd be just so much energy around, everybody chattering, and we're all seeing each other, and it's been a long time, and all this energy. I needed to go take a nap. Like, it was just a 10-15 minute, I just needed out of the energy. And so
yeah.
to be well aware of the energy that is around us, it's not the people or necessarily what they're saying, it's the energy
Well, I'll
for
teach
what
you
we're
a
doing.
really an interesting trick that I use in my meditation for mom classes is, when women get together, we're often high, that
Really?
chirpy, right? So if you want to change the energy in that room, change your voice, move it down just a little bit, slow down, breathe when you're talking, and then come at it from this more centered space as opposed to that gossipy in the throat,
Yeah, exactly. My
right?
mother used to do that. She used to do that. I have a naturally low voice anyway, so all I have to do is just slow it down a bit. But my mother would actually become very soft and go, clean your room. I'd be like, what? Clean your room. And she would just keep it very soft,
Yeah.
but it does. It brings the energy down, because if she were to scream, clean your room, I'd be like having a fit.
Yeah. So, but that's a really interesting thing that you can do, I think,
That's great.
just to really bring some breath into it, just a little bit lower energy, right? So it's not so heart centered up here, just a little bit
Right.
more
Just,
grounded.
it's like an orchestra, like a symphony. We're playing with the different energies, and our voices hold so
Mhm.
much energy. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is
You're welcome.
perfect. What a great takeaway. Um, Tell us about the group, the organization,
Oh,
the Inc.
World Awake Inc. is this amazing group. I've been involved in it at a couple of different times in a couple of different iterations, but currently they are a group that unites interfaith ministers, spiritual professionals, spiritual care professionals. So it's
Mm,
ministers and Reiki healers and sound healers and
okay.
numerologists and psychics and crystal healers and people who, all sorts of in the realm of spirituality. And they offer classes and community where these people can be seen and heard and can rely on each other as a tribe. And it's been a really wonderful thing. We're 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 doing some great things this year. I'm in charge of their social activities, which is
Wow.
me collecting
Gathering tribes together.
uh, yeah, so it's been a really wonderful. I'm going to be teaching some classes on there this year. We have some great things. It's worldawake.org if anybody wants to um, check it out, and I'll send you the links if you want to see them.
We'll have it.
Um,
We'll post the links. The links will be posted on our podcast description. So we'll get that on there. Definitely.
Fantastic. And you can always find me at, Rev Jeffries at One Beautiful Day, the number one, BEAUTIFULDAY.com. I'm happy to help anybody who needs help with, weddings or funerals or baby blessings. You can follow me on Instagram at Rev M Jeffries. Happy to help in any way that I can. I really feel like my goal in this life is um, really to uphold people's hearts and really see where that divine light can show in all of us, and we can find home in each and everybody's hearts. I think that that's really important. I think finding home is a really integral part of what we do in life. And that's why we need to be thoughtful, because sometimes we recreate the home that we had growing up unconsciously. Sometimes we are looking to find unconsciously the feeling that we had at home of being safe and secure. And we can find that in one another, but only if you're really thoughtful and conscious.
That's beautiful. And sometimes the home that we had is, can change with our thoughts and our minds and how we make it even bigger and better, or make it less than it was, or we kind of play with that, or we have a home we found, like that, from a book we read, it becomes, oh, this is what I want, this is the feelings that I want. But to be very mindful and very um, aware of all these other souls, all these other people, their hearts, as to where they're coming from and what their home really is.
Right.
And really, our homes are these bodies that we cart around, skin jackets for our
Exactly.
souls, skin jackets for our souls. That's what they are. They're just that. And we're all just trying to make it through, trying to get through this lifetime. So I don't know if you're up for this, but I would love it if you could, if you're open to giving like a 2-minute meditation, like
Sure,
2-3 minute meditation, or that would just be off the cuff. I know we didn't even
no
talk
worries,
about
no
this,
worries.
but um, just
Okay,
to,
I'm just gonna watch the time. So
we're
I'm gonna
good.
I'm gonna invite everyone just to listen to my voice, and I'm gonna ask you just to close your eyes, take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And I want you to imagine that within your heart there is a small speck of light, a brilliant, shining star. And imagine that this is the most peaceful light that you've ever seen. And as you breathe in and out, this peaceful speck of light begins to grow. Imagine that it pulsates with each breath and it fills your heart with peace. Allow yourself to let go and let that peaceful light push away any shadow. Allow it to push away just for now any hurt. Allow it to wash
with brilliance, any uneasiness, steadiness, and allow your heart to be at peace. And as you continue to grow, to breathe in and out, I want this light to continue to grow. I want you to imagine that it's also on the outside of your heart, like two hands holding your heart, warm like a child, holding you up, giving you peace. And again, breathing in and out, that begins to grow again. And you feel every part of your body beginning to relax. Feel that light ooze its way down your arms, past your elbows and wrists to each hand, each finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Allow that light to fill your entire body. And when you're sitting in this peaceful, I want you to imagine that you see your tribe around you. Feel all the energies of all the people who know and love you and uphold you and your heart. Feel the love that travels from their heart to yours. Imagine that your group, your tribe, is together within this bubble of light, and see the light move from each one of you, one to the other. Allow the light in your heart to hold them up as they hold you. Know that we are never alone in this life. We are surrounded by all those who come before us, who will come after us. Our tribe is the thing that upholds us each and every day. You have only to look into your heart to know that this light unites all of us in love and compassion. Please look around and give each one of them your smile and your love. Allow yourself to be grateful for this moment and for having this support around you. And with that, let's move that light from the outside of the circle. Allow that light to come back and ground us within our body. Allow that light to move once again into our heart, that small speck of light. Know that that's always back. And welcome you to that.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much, Maureen. That was absolutely wonderful and so energizing. So I want to thank all of our listeners today and those of you who have joined us on Facebook Live for coming in, having a seat, grabbing a coffee, and sitting at the table here with my guest, Reverend Maureen Jeffries, and myself. And you can find us on all the different podcast platforms and at CTR Network, and also at MaureenHuntley.com. These will all be listed on when we post everything this week on on all the podcast platforms. So take a deep breath and know that you're not alone here on the Family Balancing Act.